Why actors in ancient Rome were equated with prostitutes. Nero had a lover who was an actress. Julius Caesar threw mime battles. Still, actors were considered prostitutes. They weren't even citizens. How come? Ancient Romans had no days off. Festivals were a rare opportunity to relax. The theater was an essential part of their lives, but the majority of Romans despised actors. Tiberius urged high society to avoid them. Julian the Apostate forbade the priests to attend the theater. The first plays appeared in the 4th century BC in the city of Attila. Livy mentioned a religious festival in 346 BC. People asked the gods to keep away the plague. They also staged plays, but acting itself was not an act of worship. Comedians often improvised. They used mimicry and costumes. They imitated everyone, from politicians to rural travelers. They could play a disguised prostitute who pretended to be a lady. They also acted as slaves that outsmarted their masters. Plautus and Terence wrote more than 25 plays. They were the fathers of theatrical comedy. It later became a political tool. One comedian said,
"I'm not a Roman."
And then he asked,
"So spare the swallow, which the gods allow to nest safely in all your houses."
He managed to survive it, but not everyone was so lucky. Actors were often beaten or killed. In the early Roman Republic, women didn't work as actresses, but that changed over time. Emperor Nero didn't mind actors. The aristocracy hated him. The Roman Senate even declared him a public enemy. Nero committed suicide at 30. Nero was adopted by the Emperor Claudius. One actress was his favorite concubine. Nero's advisor Seneca wrote a small play. It was called the Apocalypse Claudi. Seneca mocked the late Emperor Claudius. He laughed at his speech defect and weakness. He also joked about his love of playing dice. Seneca described the emperor's worst horror, a dice goblet without a bottom. He wasn't punished in any way. Seneca was too close to the ruler, but being an actor instead of a writer was worse. Actors weren't even citizens. They belonged to the so-called infames. Most were former slaves. Children often took up the professions of their parents. It didn't pay well. Actors were equated with prostitutes. They too played their roles for money. Actors didn't have regular theaters until 55 BC. They were deemed to be bad for the human spirit. Pompey built the first permanent theater. It seated thousands of spectators. Julius Caesar ordered one mime writer to act. He wanted to see a mime battle of sorts. Decimus Liberius was to perform against Publilius. Publilius was a former slave. Liberius found it humiliating, but he couldn't refuse the emperor. He dressed up as a Syrian slave. Then he mocked Publilius, saying,
"Citizens, we are losing our freedom."
Liberius ultimately lost, but Caesar allowed him to redeem his citizenship. In general, the status of the actors was fluid. Some rulers loved them, others hated them. Still, it was a stigmatized profession.